Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Talking Acquisition. This is the weekly, high-energy, informative, and slightly opinionated view on all things acquisition, procurement, and government contracting related. This is the place where the contracting, acquisition, and industry communities partner, connect, and talk, listen, and learn from each other. My name is William Randolph, and I am your host, and I'd like to introduce my co-host, my colleague, my partner, and dear friend, Soraya Carrera. Hello, Soraya. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, Will. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Looking for another great episode.
Hey, I'm excited because we have a guest today. But first, our disclaimer. Our podcast shares information and views on a variety of topics that impact the federal acquisition community. Our goal is to provide thought leadership and perspective, not to criticize, judge, or render political opinions, although we might have a few. We provide this free service because we are former federal acquisition professionals and leaders. We believe that the creativity, innovation, and effectiveness of our community is unleashed when we share knowledge, information, and learning. We hope you enjoy our podcast, and we welcome the views and comments of our colleagues across the public and private sectors. So now I have the great privilege of introducing Mr. Anthony or Tony Bell. And Tony Bell is a great colleague of ours. We both know him very, very well. I had the privilege of working with Tony on a couple of occasions when I was at headquarters. In fact, as the Chief Procurement Officer, he was the deputy for the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. And he decided to retire before I did, left me holding the bag. No, just kidding. No, he decided to retire shortly before I did. And he actually went out and started doing some stuff out there. And he's always been a huge advocate of small businesses. I understand now Tony has his own company. It's called Longview Business Solutions. But prior to that, I know he was lending his efforts to a couple of other companies. So I'll let him talk a little bit about that. But I had the privilege of joining him at a conference shortly after he retired from government. But here's what I always like to say about Tony. And I said this when we first saw him on the screen. I always think of ZZ Top when I see him because every girl's crazy about a sharp-dressed man. Tony Bell, welcome.
Hello,
Thank
Tony.
you, Soraya. Thank you, Will. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
My pleasure. Our pleasure. Our pleasure. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing these days.
Sure. Thank you. Just recently, when I first retired, I did a little consulting for a little bit, and then I was looking at LinkedIn, and I saw where this company had a position for a program manager to work with DoD and HBCUs and minority serving institutions. And I said, wow, that is something that's really dear and near to me. So I called the owner, the CEO, and we chatted a little bit, and we found that it was a good mix. So I came on board to be the program manager for that contract. And it was a really interesting contract. And the great thing about it is the DoD had given the company funding for 1 year, but we had done such a great job that DoD, after that 1 year was up, they say, hey guys, we're going to give you a 5-year contract based in 4 years to do what we were doing. And so basically that contract was to reach out to minority serving institutions and just kind of set up an event that showcased the various offices in DoD focusing on STEM. And we would have many officers from DoD present to these students, graduating students, and some students that had even graduated from minority serving institution to kind of let them know, to try to get in their mind to look at DoD as a preferred employer.
Right.
So that, DoD is really reaching out, trying to attract more minority students in areas of STEM. So that worked really well. But as contracts would have it, the contract we have with DoD, it changed program managers and cores. And so the new core decided that they wanted to go a different way and brought in another company. And so we kind of lost that work basically. But the good thing for me is that, I think the company saw my value and they promoted me to a director of operations. Which was really good. Under my portfolio, I had about a third of the company's 150 employees, probably about a third of the contracts, and it worked well. But I realized that something was still missing within me. I realized that I have such a vast body of knowledge when it comes to small business matters. I wanted to just spread that knowledge amongst many small businesses and not kind of be contained to just one. So, I spoke to the CEO, which we're still very good friends. As a matter of fact, he's my fraternity brother. And, we had a conversation and we kind of both agreed on that. And so I decided I stepped away and then I reestablished my LLC, which Soraya just mentioned, Longview Business Consulting. And so this way I can reach out to many more small business, because I thought it was really interesting that, the time I was with this, the small business, it was 8A, a HubZone company, on a weekly basis, I will still receive calls from small businesses asking me if I'm still consulting. And I said, wow, so many people want to engage me, and I couldn't, because I was with a company, and I decided that, I'm going to, for the next few years that I do this, let me try to reach out to as many small businesses as I can and share my knowledge about the federal contracting process. Because I tell you, at DHS, under the leadership of Soraya and Kevin Boshears, and even the current OSTBU director now, Darlene Boshears, my level of small business just went meteoric. I've learned so much, especially from Kevin Boshears, who God rest his soul, which they nicknamed him the wizard of OSTBU, because this man just knew so much. But I was on his coattail, learning everything I can, and because of that, I've developed a vast knowledge of small business and GovCon, and I just want to share that with as many as I can.
No, I think that's noble. That's what we're here for, right? We take this experience that we developed in government and let's get out here and proliferate it. And I have to agree with you, Tony. There is a hunger out there by the small businesses to really understand how to work with government, and that tells us that perhaps our messages, because I know that at DHS, whether it was Kevin Boshears, Darlene Bullock, yourself, myself, Will, and the other heads of contracting, we were really reaching out to small businesses. We really were trying to be as proactive as possible, but it doesn't appear like the message was getting across, because I still talk to small businesses who say it's really hard to talk to DHS, to get in there, to understand what they're working on. So I don't know if that some of it is a little bit of gripe, don't want to work too hard to find the information, or if there was some truth to that it's just, there's so much to learn, and the government is so vast and so huge, and every agency does things differently. I just wonder, from your perspective, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I think it varies by types of businesses, but I'm just curious, what do you think? Do you think it's that the government still has to step up the communications more?
That's right. I think that it's on a agency by agency basis, department by department. I mean, there's only a finite number of hours in a day, and there's not enough hours to really accommodate all the small businesses that want to get in to see you, to see the OSTBU, to see head of contracting like Will. But I will say that I think that for your tenure at DHS, Soraya, especially going back, looking at your tenets, meaningful communication, I think you kind of laid the foundation that we will speak with industry. And I think that because of that, DHS and some of the programs that we've had, like the vendor outreach, I think DHS is probably one of the leaders in communicating and engaging small business one-on-one. Soraya, I don't know a lot of other chief procurement officers, but I don't think there was many out there that had the open door policy that you had in reaching out to small businesses. So when the folk in your organization see what you're doing at the leadership, that just, it causes us to really want to reach out and work with small businesses. So I think that one, what you said is true, that I think that agencies are doing a fairly good job, because a lot of agencies have mirrored what some of the activities you put in place. And so I think a lot of agencies are starting to reach out to more small business and be open to more small business. But by the same token, small businesses, I think that some of these small businesses, if you can't accommodate them on their schedule or tell them what they want to hear, even though they may have an audience with you, it wasn't successful.
Yeah.
Your office doesn't work with small business. So there's a little bit of both in that, as they said, you can't please all the people all the time. But I think DHS, I can only speak of DHS. DHS is doing a wonderful job in engaging industry, small business and also large business.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that because I know that Darlene and her team continue, and Darlene, put forth, Kevin started a lot of these initiatives, but Darlene enhanced a lot of those initiatives. She's added stuff even before I left. And even now, I see stuff that her and her team are doing on LinkedIn. And certainly you played a huge part in that as well. So thank you. Will, over to you.
Yeah, so I agree with you from a standpoint of DHS leading. I remember when I was in government and at DHS had years and years and years of A+ ratings with the Small Business Administration. Right. So no component wanted to be the component. Right, when the component contracting HCA, no HCA wanted to be the one that didn't let DHS hit their goals. So that pressure for excellence, it flowed down the organization. So it was really present. One of the things, Tony, that I have an opportunity now, I've been retired a few years, and one of the things I still have opportunities to talk with small businesses. And one of the things that I always tell them, and I'd like to just get your opinion on it, is that small businesses, especially those nimble, nascent ones, are just coming into the space, trying to find some open space. They don't have the luxury of playing the brand name game. It's not like they walk up and got a Raytheon badge on or Lockheed Martin badge on. Those badges just open, the doors just fling open when those companies show up. You can't play that game. You literally got to play a different game. It's almost guerrilla tactics. Like you got to find the front door is not necessarily open from the tiny small business. You got to go find a window that's cracked and kind of go figure in, build relationships and try to identify needs in programs, do the work to try to find needs and requirements in programs that you can satisfy. I wonder what are your thoughts on, you can't play the same game as the big guys.
Right. No, Will, you're absolutely right. It's a funny story when when TSA first stood up, I was the small business specialist at TSA, kind of rolled out that office. And, that was back in the days where, you were really building and flying and playing at the same time. And I can remember Accenture was there. They had a huge contract with our TSA right in the beginning. Accenture would literally walk the halls, stick their head in the program manager's office, and say, "Hey guys, I'm with Accenture. Whatever your issues are, we're here. We can do it." And I mean, just on that name alone, Accenture got so much more work. So you're absolutely right. But so the small guys have to approach it a little differently, strategically. For one, there's a lot of resources out here that the small businesses, as you said, Will, first they have to do their homework. They have to do their homework. And, that's one message that my another colleague of mine that passed away, Dan Sturtevant, he will hammer home when he spoke, you have to do homework. He always say that homework comes before success in the dictionary, one of those Danisms, but that's true. So you have to do your homework, because there's been so many times that I have met small business for the first time. They walk up to me and said, "Hi, this is who we are, and we're 8A." Period. And that was their marketing pitch.
Yeah.
And my response is, well, I'm glad to hear that, but unfortunately, we're not buying 8A services. What solutions are you bringing? Have you done your homework to find out what solutions, where are the voids, where are the holes that you being a small business, you can be nimble enough to get in there and identify some of those solutions and go and talk about the solutions you are bringing. Now, okay, you may not have access to a program manager right away, but then that's where the small business office comes in. Use that small business office as your conduit, as your champion, and to get into those program managers and decision makers. Now, if you go to the small business office saying, "Hey, I'm 8A and I want to go talk to the decision maker," they're going to look at you and says, "No, I'm sorry, I have too many other companies that are bringing me qualified solutions that are going to help the mission of this particular department." So I tell small business, first do your homework, and like I said, you can look at a lot of these databases out here, SAM.gov. USA Spend, to find out where the money is going. There is a a budget and brief that Congress puts out to kind of find out where the money is. The agencies have a forecast. See what's out there. Go to their website. Attend some of these conferences where some of these people are, and attend some of these other like NCMA. Join NCMA and find out what's going on there. So there are ways to do your business intelligence out here. So the onus is on small business to do some things themselves instead of just having an agency do everything for them. I was talking to just Darlene recently, and she was saying, Tony, sometimes I wish that I could really just sit down with each small business and tell them that you have to help yourself as well as we help you. Yeah. So Will, you're absolutely right that small businesses don't have the same access as large businesses do. I mean, that's just going to be a fact of GovCon. But there are ways that that small businesses can get in, because I think that there was a statistics for DHS that there were so many number of small businesses that have gotten their first contract, that have received their first contract with DHS. Now, these companies put their pants or skirt on the same way that everybody else does. It's just that they have maybe a better strategic approach. Maybe they're doing some, they have a mentor. They're in a JV program. So there's just tools out there to help small businesses be successful.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, Tony. And in fact, I used to tell especially a lot of the new small business or small businesses that had never done business with DHS. So what do you bring to the table? What you have to understand the challenges of the agency and come and pitch how you can help address those challenges. If you don't have an answer, or if you say, I do a little bit of everything, I can't tell how many companies will come to me and say, oh yeah, well, we do everything in IT. And I go, well, good. I don't want you. I want somebody that specializes, right? Bring me expertise, bring me talent, bring me capability. It's unbelievable how easy it is to get a contract once you understand the challenges and you know how to bid and you know how to come in and sell. And there are so many opportunities for companies, especially in organizations like DHS, that have a lot of these programs. They have a great small business innovation research program. They have the Silicon Valley Innovation Program for those companies that have unique niche capabilities and talents. They have a ton of activities that they are engaging in constantly to invite small businesses in. And I will say that the president's management agenda, now with this big emphasis that we have on let's bring in these companies that are in these underserved communities, they got to make themselves known. Right. They got to make themselves known, right? They got to come out and say, here's what I specialize in, here's what my expertise is in, and here's how I can help your agency. Nobody, I don't care who the president is, I don't care who's doing what in Congress, you don't just write a check. You have to compete and you have to win. I can't tell how many companies will walk up to me, oh, when you gonna write me a check? Yeah, right. I can't write you a check. I'm writing you a check, right? But it is important for companies to understand that and to understand there are a lot of opportunities for small businesses, that it's not just lip service, but that they have to know how to go pursue that business, right? Whether teaming with other small businesses or mid-tiers or getting on JVs or mentor protege programs, there's a whole lot of opportunities. And I think it is a lot easier today than it was like in my early years of procurement way back when. But what I will say though, I think one of the challenges that the federal agencies confront, you hit it right on the nail right on the head. Time. The time and the opportunity to really understand who's out there, to really drive competitions in those directions. More and more, I think we see contracts getting bigger and bigger because we're consolidating more things, because frankly, there just isn't enough time in the day. They keep adding requirements on the contracting officer, things that they have to do as part of the acquisition. And everybody keeps forgetting, well, the more they have to do, the less time they have to do it in. So, I mean, your thoughts on that? Do you agree that I think the world is kind of shaping out a little weirdly here, that we just don't have enough time to really seek out that competition?
I do agree with you, Sarai, because I mean, I was just looking at what 10 years ago, government was doing $550 billion in goods and services. Now is up to like $650 billion. And so time is such a precious commodity. And so now contracting officers and contracting shops, they have to look at ways to do differently, because I mean, they're, even though they're a contracting shop, they do so much more than just award contracts. And so the small business community is going to have to look at ways of doing things differently. Because as you said, Sarai, teaming and these contracts are getting larger and larger. I mean, one of the biggest tools out here, and I believe is one of the biggest underutilized tools out here, I can never say this word right, but it's the similarly situated entity. That's when, small business, for small business set aside, small businesses, they have to do 51% of the work.
Mhm.
Now, when these contracts are getting bigger, that's going to be harder for a single small business to do 51% of the work. But now, with this similarly situated entity, a small business can team up with another small business to do the 51%. I mean, that there will be that small business prime, but they can bring on somebody that's considered a sub, but it's still part of their prime offering to do the 51%.
Wow.
Yep.
Right. And I just think that is just the small businesses that utilize that and understand that, they're taking off. But it comes back to time. And I really, have a soft spot for the contracting folk who are in this, because I mean, their days are getting longer, and I think it may start to affect morale. But I think the smarter contracting shops will find ways to figure this out. And like we just said, one thing, the small business contracts are getting larger, which may and maybe less contracts are being offered for the small business set asides. But that's something that industry just has to adopt and change. Nothing stays stagnant forever. So no, Sarai, I agree with you. Time can be a problem, but the smart ones will adapt.
Yeah, by the way, I'm glad that you brought up the similar situated entity, because it's kind of interesting. Mid-tiers used to come and talk to me all the time, and they still do. And, mid-tiers have always argued that they're in that little in-between space. I grew up, I'm out of the small business program, but I'm not really big enough to compete with the really big guys. Right. And there's no programs for us and all that good stuff. And not using the word similar situated entity, I can't tell how many times I said to mid-tiers, if a group of you all got together and teamed to bid, you can beat the big guys.
Yeah, you can eat some lunch. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I used to toss that one out there. Over to you, Will. Sorry.
Yeah. So Tony, I want to tap your brain a little bit on observation that I've seen the last 2 years, and this is the outsized utilization of best-in-class vehicles. Okay, and then how this plays in small business. So think about 20 and 21. We had pandemic spending, trillions of dollars went into the system, and all the stuff that would have normally got processed through the end of the year sat until we got the pandemic spending out of the way. Then they had to go pick that up, and I believe that was one of the saving graces to the increased adoption to best-in-class vehicles. Because how else are you going to be moving big chunks of money, but then to use the contracts that are in place? Now, here's 2022, we don't get a budget. Our contracting brethren don't get a budget until March. Okay, right. So all the new start stuff that should have started maybe in October and November, we can't even touch the new start stuff, in true fashion till almost the end of the second quarter. Here comes, I believe, saving grace again, the likelihood of additional adoption of best-in-class vehicles, utilizing those contracts. I understand it, but I wonder, and I want to ask your opinion. Actually, you too, Sarai. I'll ask your opinion on, do you think this best-in-class vehicle use, where you have pre-existing sets of service providers that are predetermined, they're ready, they go all the value propositions. So I'm not knocking the value proposition, but do they have a negative impact on those nimble small businesses that are around looking for opportunities when these big muscle movement, big chunks of funds are likely finding themselves to existing best-in-class vehicles with existing offerer sets, groups of offerers already predetermined?
Tony, I'll let you take the first crack at it.
Okay. Yeah, I was chuckling because, Will, that is a very slippery slope, especially when you talk to the small business community.
Mhm.
I mean, they say that best in class category management basically is a death march for small businesses. But going back to the time for contracting folk, that it could be a saving grace.
Yeah,
have
I get
these,
it. Yeah, I
have these
understand the
best-in-class
motivations
contracts.
why.
Right,
I
right,
just
right,
wonder.
right.
I just wonder
Well,
if there's a
well,
unintended consequence that will manifest itself.
well, it could be, but one of the things I say that for a DHS, especially some of the best in class contracts, that I will say that DHS has allowed every vendor, large and small, an equal opportunity to bid. Now, one thing that we can't guarantee are equal results.
Right.
It's the ones that sharpen the pencil, understand the requirement, and communicate that in their proposal back to the government at the best price is going to be on one of those best in class contracts.
Gotcha.
So, I think a lot of people in the small business community probably take exception to what I just said, but that's the fact of the matter is, before, right, everybody had their little piece of the rock, but this is a president's agenda. And frankly, as a taxpayer, I would like to see the government be a very good fiduciary of the money that I spend and have economies of scale. But by the same time, you can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. And I think OMB kind of recognized that. And so just recently, OMB, in their most recent memo that came out, is OMB 22-03. So any small businesses out here, any businesses, take a look at that memo. It was published December 2nd, 2021. And one of the things that they say in that, they address category management and best in class contracts, where now they are allowing certain socioeconomic businesses to be counted as a tier 2 spend for agencies, which basically means that it's going to allow agencies to kind of reach out to more small businesses. Yeah. So OMB has heard the cries from the small business community and also a lot of the OSTBU departments, and OMB is trying to really find that middle ground to make it palatable to both. But I think the small businesses that basically affects that, I would say that they probably need to go back and look at their strategy. Do they really understand the full cycle of looking at procurements, putting procurements in the pipeline? Do they understand qualifying, how to identify a potential opportunity, how to qualify it, how to get it into the pipeline, to move it all the way through there? And you find some small businesses that really do that well and are doing well in any environment, category management or non-category management. So I think it just requires small businesses to just kind of sharpen their body of knowledge of GovCon.
I love it.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, Tony. My comments on this were, I don't think the best-in-class contracting necessarily hurts small businesses as long as that best-in-class contracting is done right. So at DHS, when we were adopting and we were structuring some of our contracts, we created lanes for small business. We created categories. There we go. Right. So there was, the categories for the large businesses where they could compete with one another. The small businesses could always compete where the large businesses are, but we actually created swim lanes, if you will, for the small businesses to be able to compete. And in some cases, we actually did it by category, socioeconomic category, to even tighten that competition a little bit more and give greater opportunity. I think where I've seen perhaps the reduction in small businesses, where small businesses don't feel they're getting a real fair shake, is all in how agencies choose to evaluate proposals. Sometimes we're a little parochial out here. Agencies are a little parochial out here, and you got to have experience working in that agency. Well, that means that you're not going to get a company that's a new company, right? That is right? Yeah. There I go thinking again. Or they they're requiring past performance capabilities or references, if you will, from another federal agency. So a company that perhaps has been doing commercial contracting all its life, right, and then decides to forge into, take a foray into the government, doesn't get an opportunity. And I think that's a little myopic, especially when we talk about technology, right? I think that's okay, like maybe in services and a couple other places. We start talking technology, you can't just rely on folks that have been working for the government, because they may not be doing new stuff in the government.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Right? It might be an industry where they're doing, what I call the true innovative, creative stuff. So I think the government has to be a little bit more clever about how they're evaluating those small businesses, what capabilities they're looking for. And the government can't be so risk averse that they're not going to be willing to try somebody new.
Right.
Somebody who hasn't really done it before in government, but maybe has successfully done it out here before. And that was always kind of my mantra when people came in to talk to me, especially on the technology side. I go, oh, so good. We'll just go hire the usual suspects who haven't done it for us before, right? Excuse me, we hired them before and they didn't even deliver it before, right? Sorry, my sarcasm. I told you my sarcasm. But no, we just keep like going. And I was always challenging, and that's why we stood up the Procurement Innovation Lab, and we worked in partnership with the OSDBU, because we were really thinking, when we stood up that Procurement Innovation Lab, when I was thinking about how do we make procurement better, I was thinking of two groups of people: the acquisition professional, which includes my contracting officers and the contracting team, and small businesses, because it is expensive to bid on government contracts. I have had companies come before us and tell us $5,000 a page to bid. It's expensive. It's expensive. And when you're a small company, you don't have a lot of resources to throw at it. So I think of the little small business. Oh, that's me now. And you.
That's right.
We're up at 3 in the morning.
We live in this space now.
Right. So I think about that and I say, government, you got to be a little bit more clever about this, right? We got to find ways to streamline the process, make it more efficient, and get a company in and out of the process as quickly as possible, so they're not wasting time, energy, and money. And that leads me to my last little mantra. You're going to hear this, Will. And Will, by the way, what did you say? What did you say about guerrilla tactics? That's hilarious. Guerrilla tactics. I'm telling you, this man comes out with some crazy stuff. Anyway. But that takes me to my other mantra that you're going to hear every single time I talk. And that is, get information out there early, agencies. Get information out as early as possible. I can tell how many small businesses are coming to me, and you know what they're willing to pay me for? They're willing to pay me to tell them what they can get for free from the government. And I'm not, I don't do that, but there are other companies that'll take your money for that.
Absolutely.
But they can go out and look at that forecast and look at SAM. And like you said, do that homework. They're willing to pay me to do that. Why? Because it's too hard for them. They think it's too hard. They think there's a trick or there's a magic pill. There are no magic pills. There is a federal acquisition regulation. There are rules of how you run these competitions, and there is data. And we need to be, I keep saying we because I'm still in the government in my mind. Anyway,
it'll take some time, don't worry.
I know. The government has got to do a better job of publish information. I was in a conversation with a colleague of ours where we were talking about the fact that wouldn't it be a novel concept if the government started telling industry what they were thinking about doing the moment they put it in the budget? Wouldn't it be a novel concept if the government said, I'm thinking, because the budget's done 2 years in advance, they can't get it out on time, but that's a different topic. But anyway, but when the government says, I'm thinking about doing, right? They go and say, I'm thinking about doing to industry, and here's what I think I'm looking for. And what do you think about it? And how many industry will write the damn solicitation for us if we let them?
Absolutely.
Think about it. They want to solve the problem. They want to help. So I continue to advocate for that early communication. I continue to advocate for get as much information out there as possible. And I continue to advocate for that transparency. Make it easy for industry to see that data and get to it so that they can do that homework. And then I tell industry, do the homework. What did you say? Homework comes before success in the dictionary. Dan Studeman had that right. H before S. Do the homework and go talk to it. And look, don't think that you're going to go knock on every program officer's door and you're going to get an opportunity to meet with them. They're just as busy as everybody else.
Right.
Time is money, and we don't have a lot of it. It's a luxury most of us cannot afford. So that's my little pitch, my little bandwagon. I don't think best in class hurts small business, but it doesn't really help them. And we just got to be more clever about how we do those best in class contracts. I advocated for that when I was at DHS. I fought hard on that. I went to my OSDBUs. Tony used to hear me all the time go, y'all need to go talk to Small Business Administration. Because how are we doing? When we first came out and I was pushing OFPP, and they used to hear from me all the time, what are we doing for smalls? What are we doing for smalls? And they appreciated that. Then we actually had some of our contracts categorized in the other tiers because we were pushing that agenda, because we said, hey, we should get credit. We're helping smalls. We have excellent companies. Yeah. So I think it's all in a matter of how you structure a program, but we got to create the efficiencies for both the large, the small, and the federal government as a whole. Because I will get on this bandwagon again. I'm sorry. I know I'm monopolizing time. Will's going to cut me off any minute now. But I'm monopolizing time. But here's the bottom line. The government doesn't buy just to buy. We buy because we have a need. We're fulfilling a mission objective. So this isn't for, as Soraya likes to say, shits and giggles. Right. Sorry, it's my French.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Yeah, agreed. Well, folks, it is that time. Speaking of time, it is that time. It's been an amazing discussion, and we thank
Tony,
you so
come
much.
back. You and I will talk.
I would love to. I would love to anytime.
But speaking of which, let's leave our community with a nugget. And I would offer, Tony, would you like to? Is there a nugget you'd like to leave our GovCon community, our contracting and acquisition community?
Right. Well, one of the things I said that, this GovCon community is very dynamic and ever changing. And so, there's some information out here, like some of the two publications I mentioned earlier, the OMB memo, this 22-03. I will encourage all small businesses to pick that up, because I kind of go back to, maybe many of the listeners won't remember this. I'm kind of dating myself, but there was a clothing store out here called Sims. And their tagline was, an educated consumer is our best customer. And, to me, that just applies to small businesses and GovCon. The more you're educated, the better you will understand this whole process, and the better you will know. So the OMB memo 22-03 and Soraya kind of mentioned it, the executive order 13985. Those are two recent documents that I would encourage all small businesses just to kind of get a hold of them, skim, and just kind of know, because you have to know. And in parting, Will, you and I didn't get a chance to work together a lot, but you're cut from the same cloth that many of the great HCAs at DHS are. So, I applaud you there, but, I just want to say, Soraya, in my final moments, I just want to say thank you for your vision, and your leadership. Some of the things you implemented, the RID, the SIC, there was one thing that I kind of knew probably would be a hard stretch to do, but you had that thought in your mind, which was to have federal acquisition folks spend maybe some time with industry and vice versa. Then I just think that you just get a better appreciation for what everybody does. And Soraya, I think that even your touch is still being felt. My good friend Mike Darius over at State, I think a lot of things that Mike is doing, some of the things that he saw as he grew up in DHS, that he's doing some great things over there at State as the SPE. So, Soraya, I just want to say, thank you for your leadership at DHS. I think you really moved that agency light years ahead. A lot of agencies are imitating you. They say imitation is the best form of flattery. Some of the things that you have done, and I know Paul is there picking up the mantle that you left off, and is going to continue to move DHS light years forward. So again, just want to say thank you for all that you have done and all the support that you have given the OSDBU and me personally when I was there. So thank you.
Thank you, Tony. That's so kind of you to say. So I'm gonna give you my two nuggets. I always have one for industry and one for government. So for government, we got to be a little less risk averse. We got to create opportunities for small businesses, those that have not done business with us before, to get in that door. And I think in the technology side, especially, that becomes extremely important, because I think there are a lot of small businesses out there that are being very creative, being very innovative, and they're really interested in solving the problems that the government faces. And whether they team with another business, another small business, or a mid-tier or a large business, that's fine. I don't care. But we got to get these companies in the door, because the problems that we face are huge. The challenges to meet the mission objectives just continue to grow. You just watch the news every day. And so you got to create that opportunity. So I think in government, we got to be a little less risk averse, and we got to try. We got to put that best foot forward. And for our small businesses, you got to specialize. You got to tell us what you're good at. And when you come through that door, come selling not just your company, but what you can do for that agency, for that program, for that particular requirement. Believe you me, if you do that, I think you're going to get business. And to all I say, thank you for everything that you do every day. When I listen to the news every night, I think about the fact that we still live in the greatest country with the best government in the world. And right here sit two of the many reasons why our government was and is great, because of people like Tony, like you, Will, who come every day to put forth that best foot. I sit, I'm a Napa fellow, and I sit on the Public Service Forum, and we talk about public service all the time. And I remain extremely passionate about it. Even though I'm out here, I think a lot about my government and my friends there, and I want them to continue to be the best government in the world. Over to you.
I love that. I love that. So my nugget is just a two-parter, really quick. For our government, for our government small businesses out there, don't be afraid to go small and to go subs. Okay, from a standpoint of everybody and their grandmothers out there competing for that $1 million, $10 million, $15 million contract. Some of those smaller deals, there may be some space to learn the system, build your muscles, and grow your capability going after smaller things. And then second is, don't be afraid to sub, okay? Don't be afraid to come to the marketplace as a competent sub, okay? Until you figure it out, out. It's a good place to bring capability, but then to learn the process. Sit up, team up, and don't be afraid to go small, okay? The competition's often less at the lower levels. And then excuse me, and then don't be afraid to sub. Don't be afraid to sub. So Tony, before we go, I want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity to if they want to connect with you, how's the best ways to reach out?
Absolutely. Thanks, Will. The best way to reach me is it's going to be Tony at longviewservicesllc.com. Tony at longviewservicesllc.com. Thanks,
All right.
Will.
All right. And with that, thank you so very much for joining us. It's an
My
amazing
pleasure.
conversation. We got to bring you back. We got to have
Love
a follow-on
Oh,
part two.
definitely.
Love to come back. Yeah. So
Definitely.
Soraya was nice. She was nice to me this time, so I'll come back.
It's
you
a setup.
gotta come
It's
back,
a
'cause
setup.
there's so much to talk about, with the world of small business and all that's going on right now, and some of the changes that SBA is making. So I know we're going to have you, and I'm going to see if we can pull up some of our other friends in the business. But definitely love to have you back, Tony. Thank you so much for your service.
It's my
Good
pleasure.
luck with Longview. Really
Absolutely.
excited
Good luck
for
with
you.
Longview.
And
Thank you.
Will, as always, it's a pleasure.
Same
Look
here,
forward to
Soraya,
seeing you next
my
time.
amazing friend. All right. And with that, folks, we're out. All the
Guys,
best.
keep doing what you're doing. I love it. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.